Hey guys, so in this video we're going to focus on how do we find composite functions. So when it comes to composite functions, you're typically dealing with two different functions, two different equations, typically an f of x and a g of x. And some of the things that they ask you to do of this is they're going to ask you to find g of x, find f of g, or they might even ask you to plug in a number for that. So what this essentially is asking you to do, if you are going to find g of f, for example, let's first understand one concept. If I asked you to find g of 2, what would that be asking you to do? So if I want to find g of 2, so that means I'm going to be looking at the g of x equation, not the f of x. This isn't concerning f of x. And what that's asking me to do is it wants me to plug in a 2 for x. Right, so that would look like, g of 2 would look like 3 times x, but in this case x is a 2, and then plus 5. Right, so g of 2 is essentially just saying, hey, plug in 2 for x, see what you get. So if we think about that, but instead thinking find g of f of x, right, so if you want to find g of f of x, instead of plugging in a 2, for example, into g, we're going to plug in f of x into g, was what that's saying. So we want to focus on g of x. So g of x is 3x plus 5. So essentially, instead of plugging in a 2 for x, we're going to plug in f of x. Now, f of x is this entire equation right here. So f of x, which equals negative 5x plus 7, we're going to plug that in to x for g of x. That is what g of f of x means. Start with g, and anywhere you see an x, you want to plug in the f of x equation. So g of x would equal 2, so there's a 3, right? That's still going to be there. We have an x, but remember, instead of x, we got to plug in f of x, which is negative 5x plus 7, and then continue with g of x, drop down that plus 5. So this is what g of f of x would look like. This exact equation, but instead of x, we've plugged in the negative 5x plus 7. So that's the first part. Now let's do this in reverse. Let's find f of g of x. So that means we're going to start with f, and anytime we see an x, we're going to plug in g. So if we start with f, the first thing we have in f is a negative 5. When we get to an x, remember we're plugging in g, which is 3x plus 5. And then continuing with the equation gives us a plus 7. So that's what f of g of x would then look like. It's f of x, but again, remember, instead of the x, you're plugging in g into it. Now, you could be asked to continue to clean up these equations a little bit, like actually using your rules of solving an equation to simplify it. You can distribute the negative 5 to get you negative 15x. Negative 5 times positive 5 is a negative 25, and drop down that plus 7. Combine your like terms, so if we drop down the negative 15x, negative 25 plus 7 gives us a negative 18. So simplified, this is what f of g of x would actually look like. We would also be able to simplify the g of f of x up here that we did by distributing the 3. Okay. But essentially, that's all composite functions are. It's taking one function, inputting it into the other one, and then just continue to simplify it and work with that equation. Otherwise, that's it for this video.